Have you ever wondered why some stories, no matter how wild they seem, just feel believable? Well, today we're going to crack open the psychology behind conspiracy theories. We're not just looking at what people believe, but the really deep-seated reasons why. And maybe more importantly, what the science says is the best way to deal with them. So let's dive in. Just think about this for a second. More than half of all Americans are convinced Lee Harvey Oswald didn't act alone. A full third believe that global warming is a total hoax. These aren't just fringe ideas we're talking about. They are deeply woven into our culture. So why? What is going on in our heads that makes these secret explanations so appealing? To really get to the bottom of this, we've got to look at the basic human needs that these theories seem to fill. And what's so fascinating is that this has nothing to do with how smart someone is. Nope. It's about these powerful psychological drivers that are, built into every single one of us. Okay, so first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. What even is a conspiracy theory? Well, at its core, it's any explanation for a really big event that points to a secret plot by some powerful and, frankly, evil group. That definition is key, right? It's all about the secrecy, the power, and the bad intentions. So, psychologists have pretty much boiled down the appeal of all this into a really clear framework. It all comes down to three core human needs: our need to know what's going on, our need to feel safe and in control, and that deep-seated need we all have to belong. Let's break each one down. First up are what they call epistemic needs. It's just a fancy term for our basic drive to understand the world. When something huge and chaotic happens and the official story feels, incomplete or just too random, our brains hate that. We crave a story that makes sense of it all. And that's what conspiracy theories do. They give you a clear, simple story with obvious bad guys, which can feel way more satisfying than a messy, complicated reality. Next, we have our existential needs. We all want to feel safe, right? We want to feel like we have some control over our own lives. So when people are feeling anxious or powerless, believing you've uncovered some secret plot can actually give you a sense of control back. It's this feeling that you have special knowledge that nobody else has, and that can be really empowering when the world feels totally unpredictable. And last but not least are social needs. We are wired to be part of a tribe, to feel good about the groups we belong to. Conspiracy theories are incredibly good at tapping into this. They create a very clear us versus them. The believers, us, are the smart ones who see the truth. And all the world's problems, they're caused by some powerful, shadowy them. It's a really powerful way to boost your group's self-esteem. So, these theories promise knowledge, they promise control, they promise belonging, but, and this is where it gets really interesting, do they actually deliver? Well, the research points to a really surprising and honestly critical paradox. And this right here is the heart of that paradox. On one hand, you have the promise, certainty, control, community. But then look at the reality. What the studies actually find? It's the total opposite. Believing in these theories often makes people feel more uncertain, less in control, and can actually lead to them feeling alienated and distrustful of everyone. This quote from the researchers just hits the nail on the head. For many people, conspiracy belief may be more appealing than satisfying. The idea of having the secret answer is super appealing, but the belief itself doesn't actually fix the underlying psychological need. It's kind of like scratching an itch that just gets worse and worse. They just don't deliver. Okay, so if these beliefs are actually making things worse for people, that brings us to the million-dollar question, right? How do you effectively counter them? What does the data actually say about changing someone's mind? Well, let's start with what doesn't work. And honestly, it's pretty much everything we normally try. Just arguing with facts, trying to debunk a theory after someone already believes it, appealing to their empathy, or worst of all, making fun of them. Turns out all of these common tactics are surprisingly ineffective. At best, they create tiny, tiny changes. And this chart really puts it all into perspective. Just look at the effect sizes for our usual go-to strategies, empathy, counterarguments. They barely move the needle. Getting people to just think a bit more critically helps a little, but then you've got this one strategy that is just in a whole different league, informational inoculation. The effect is huge. It's not even close. So let's spend our final section on this one powerhouse strategy. The research is crystal clear on this. When it comes to fighting conspiracy theories, an ounce of prevention is truly worth a pound of cure.
So what is it? Well, they call it the vaccine method, and the name is just perfect. The idea is to preemptively expose someone to a weakened version of a bogus argument and then immediately take it apart with facts and logic. Just like a real vaccine uses a harmless bit of a virus to prep your immune system, this pre-bunking builds up mental antibodies. It makes people way more resilient when they finally run into the real thing out in the wild.
And the difference is just staggering. I mean, look at this. When you just reactively argue against a theory, you get a tiny impact. But when you use these proactive strategies like inoculation and education, they are over 5 times more effective. It is not even in the same ballpark. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? First, trying to argue someone out of a belief they already have is, for the most part, a losing battle. The most powerful thing you can do is be preventative. It's all about building up critical thinking skills ahead of time. In other words, pre-bunking works a whole lot better than debunking. And that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. We started with those 3 basic human needs, right? The need for knowledge, for security, and for belonging. Conspiracy theories offer a really tempting shortcut to meeting those needs. But as we saw, it's an empty promise. So the real challenge for all of us is this. In a world full of stories designed to exploit those needs, how do we learn to recognize and choose the things that will actually satisfy them?